Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're live. I think we are live. Testing 1, 2, 3, but we should be live. Hello, world. Happy Saturday. I do see we are live. Hello, world. I'll let, as always, leave a few minutes for everyone to trickle on in. I have my hot tea. So actually, it's not tea. It's just like a hot drink. Thanos Godzilla with the first. Hello, hello, hello. You are the lucky person that can say you were first and chat is working. So that's also good. So good. I can also see chat is working. Like I said, I'm going to give it a few minutes for people to come on in. But I mean, it's very much like if you read the title and the description, we're basically, that's what we're going to be talking about. The big news about obviously the new Toho film, but also the other things that came out at G-Day, G-Fest Day, whatever you want to call it. There was a lot of stuff. And there's tons actually, but I'm going to cover what I found most interesting. So I'm sure you're going to say like, oh, Gojo 4, what about this or what about that? And like, if you want to, you know, we can discuss it in the stream, but I'm going to talk about the things I found really interesting. And look, G-Day was like huge. There was like tons of stuff that came out. And I don't know if I'm going to cover everything because not everything is that interesting to me. I'm going to mainly talk about, like I said, what I found really cool. Also, a lot of it had to do with Gigan. So I have my Final Wars Gigan, Final Wars 2003, 2004 Gigan figure right here. Bandai 9-inch. Actually, this is a Bandai 9-inch one. This is not the 6-inch figure that came out years later. This is the original 9-inch figure from the original Godzilla Final Wars toy lineup. So, yeah. Favorite figure of mine. My favorite Gigan design, actually. Though I really like the Showa Gigan. I got nothing really against the Showa Gigan. And we're going to be talking about Gigan a lot today on the stream. So, that's, but give it a few more minutes for everyone to trickle in. I'm double checking. I think it looks like from my end, the stream is up. It's running. I'm live. I'm not used to, this is weird. Yep, I don't really, that's cool. That's cool. That's all coming up. Like I said, I feel like I'm starting to get a bit more the hang of this whole live streaming thing, but I still don't really know what I'm doing. So that's how it is. And it was funny. The last stream, somebody asked me like, "Who are you talking to in these streams?" I'm just talking to whoever is here or not here. I'm very chill about it. Also, like a lot of people watch, I leave the VODs up, so a lot of people watch them. So the stream is not just for people right now, but it's also for people who will watch this video when it's like on YouTube. So also shout out to everybody who's watching this like as a YouTube video, basically. Thanks for watching this video, I guess, of the stream. All right, I think we give enough time. There's a few things to cover, so I think we're just gonna jump straight into the news. So it's, I mean, at this point, if you haven't heard about it, I think everybody has. But if you haven't, been living under a rock, I mean, for the past like 2 days, Toho announced that they're gonna make a new Godzilla film, a new live-action Godzilla film that's coming out in 2023. So not an anime series, a live-action film production. And they even revealed the logo on their social medias, which is this logo design and the date of the 2023, November 3rd of 2023. So a year, like exactly a year from Godzilla Day. So now, what, 363 days from today? Something like that? We are getting a new Godzilla film, a new live-action Godzilla film from Toho. So obviously this is huge. I mean, it just almost came out of nowhere. I will say, and I'll get to this in a little bit, we did kind of already know about this. I'll get to that in a moment. But in terms of like this kind of news, I wasn't really expecting anything like this, at least not for Godzilla Day. I thought it was just going to be like the short films and figure news. which is cool. I did not expect this massive bit of news. I don't think many people did, but it's really exciting. And like even here it says on BloodyDisgusting.com, the last live action film from Toho was Shin Godzilla. That came out in 2016. That movie is over 6 years old now, which is crazy to think about how much time is flying by. But 6 years ago, we got Shin Godzilla, and now we're getting a new Toho Godzilla film next year. And I mean, that's pretty crazy, all things considered, because, you know, of course, we know in 2024, we're getting the next MonsterVerse film, which is Godzilla and Kong, Godzilla vs. Kong 2, whatever they're going to call it. And we also have the Monarch live action series, which I believe probably, likely will come out next year, sometime next year, late next year probably. As well, we still have the Kong Skull Island anime. I mean, we're getting so much kaiju content. It's insane. All within like next year is gonna be, I think it's gonna be great. I think there's gonna be for Godzilla fans at least. It's going to be great in terms of content. So that's pretty fantastic. I think that it's cool that we already have like a logo, and to me it's still kind of like I'm a little bit in shock, because like a year is not, this isn't 2 years, this isn't like announcement of a year and a half. This is less, at this point, less than a year. I mean, we're talking about like the promotion for this film could start in 6-7 months. I mean, by next summer we could already be getting our like first trailers, first images of this film, maybe even earlier. In terms of a teaser trailer this year, unless Toho really surprises us, I highly doubt it. I think we'll get a teaser trailer sometime early next year, maybe in the spring. Definitely a trailer in the summer, late summer for sure, like 3 or 4 months before the movie comes out. And then obviously more trailers closer to when the actual film comes out. I think in terms of suit design and stuff like that, I don't know if they're going to do it like Shin Godzilla, where they kind of just showed us the suit but didn't show us the other forms until the film came out, or if they'll kind of keep them more hidden. I don't know. Toho is a bit different from their marketing than how Legendary might do it, so we'll just have to see. But I do think that the fact that a year before they announced the film is coming out, I think they're gonna be pretty, what's the best way to say it? Secretive, maybe, with their marketing is the best word to say, because we didn't really get anything official until just now, and we didn't even get any design reveal or anything. So I have a feeling that they're gonna keep things pretty, like we'd say, you know, close to the chest. Like they won't show us much. Maybe we might get a teaser trailer. We might even get, you know, a trailer next year during the summer that might show us some things, but I don't, you know, maybe we might not get a design for a long time, but again, I don't know. That's up to Toho and maybe their marketing for this film. With Shin Godzilla, I remember we got Shin Godzilla's first look in like those posters that came out in like maybe, I think, December, and the movie came out in summer, like 6 months before, and that was our first look, and that was like Shin Godzilla's side profile, the picture they use on everything, all the promotional marketing of Shin Godzilla. That was like our first look at Shin Godzilla, and it was just his face. So actually, I think the very first thing we saw of Shin Godzilla was his foot, actually. So with this one, we only get there's a lot of theories from some people have heard that this image, this logo here, is like his tail or something like that, or it's, you know, I think, you know, it's a G. To me it looks like a G. A lot of people are saying it's the tail or the lower half of the, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one. I clearly see a G, so for me it looks like a G. And so there's another, I guess you'd call it rumor. I'm not really sure where this news exactly came from, but a lot of people are saying that this is a zero, and the name of the film will be called Godzilla Zero. And I'm not exactly sure where people are getting this information, but I've heard this already from some sources. At this point, this is just a rumor. I don't know if this is true, but some people are saying this film will be called Godzilla Zero or something like that. Now, when I said earlier that we actually kind of knew about this project before, what I meant by that was back in February. Actually, I checked. I actually talked about this in a live stream that Toho was doing a new kaiju film because we learned about this through a casting call um, about this, and so that was this project, this mystery project that we didn't really know anything about. We guessed it might have been a new Godzilla film, but there was nothing official about it. Um, that is this project basically, because it's by the same director, and I'll get into that as well. Um, but it's by the same director that was mentioned in that casting call. And what we also know from that casting call, I believe, is that the sequences they were filming were going to be set like in the era after World War II, like in the 1940s. Now, we don't know that the entire movie is set in the 1940s, but we know that at least part of it is going to be. And I believe I've already said before, I would love to see a Godzilla period piece. Like, that would be amazing. We've never really have gotten, we've gotten flashback sequences. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah 2 is very famous for its sequences featuring the Godzilla source, and that's actually one of the best parts of that movie. But we've never really gotten anything else, flashback sequences here and there. But I would love to see a full movie set right after World War II, or even maybe during World War II, featuring Godzilla and other kaiju. So I think that would be super cool. But at this point, we don't really know. But it is, and I believe, I don't know if this article says exactly, but yes, it does say, we know that Takashi Yamazaki is going to be directing it, and he also worked on Godzilla the Ride, which if you didn't know about it, there's like a ride in Japan, which is like Godzilla and King Ghidorah fighting, and you're kind of in the middle of it. And he like directed the like visual effects sequences for it, but he also did very famously the visual effects sequence for a film that came out back in 2007 called like Always Sunset, which had like in the opening sequence, it's a dream sequence, so it's not actually happening, but has like Godzilla showing up, and it was like one of the first CGI Godzillas that was ever produced by Toho, or like a Japanese production. I don't know if Toho made that film, and that was huge at the time, and I'll talk about that later. But he's the same guy who made that, who did Godzilla the Ride, and now he's working on this, which is super cool. And again, if this is a period piece, that would be really amazing. I'd love to see that. I think it would be cool because, like, for example, I can't believe I'm going to reference it, but like that was what was cool about Call of Duty Operation Monarch, the Warzone Godzilla crossover, in that it was using like the World War II Vanguard weapons and map. So it was like you were using World War II era weapons to fight Godzilla and Kong, and it honestly works really, really well because Godzilla and Kong are kind of originally from that era. One is from 1933 and one of the other ones from 1954, so they're kind of from the era before and after World War II anyway. So it would work really well. And I don't know if this movie is then a remake of Godzilla 1954 or something like that, which would be amazing if that's what it is, like a complete remake, and not like Shin Godzilla in the sense that like Shin Godzilla was more, I'd say Shin Godzilla was more of a reboot than a remake, because it doesn't really follow the original plot, where this might be, if it is a period piece, it may be a full-on remake of Godzilla 1954, Gojira, which would be incredible. I've always wanted to see something like that. At this point, I'm totally guessing. This is just conjecture. So we don't know much else, really. We just know that he's directing it, and it comes out November 3rd of 2023. And that's very exciting, but there's not much else we know at this time. But I'm sure we'll get more information probably early next year / middle of next year. We'll start to get way more information. Still, this is huge, right? This is huge. This is nothing to just go, oh, okay. So I think we definitely can look forward to this. And from what I've seen of Godzilla the Ride and Always Sunset, I think this could be, I wouldn't say high expectations, but I think this could be good. and especially if it's a period piece, that already has me sold. But we don't know anything yet, right? So I think that's really cool. Uh, but there's other things that came out on Godzilla Day that I do want to cover. So I will kind of briefly go over those as well before I kind of just go more to rambling on about this. But the other big things to cover were the Godzilla versus Gigan shorts that came out. The big one, obviously, I think is the Godzilla versus Gigan Rex short. That is created by Gemstone, and I'm not 100% sure if Gemstone is like a Toho production or it's like they make fan films and Toho like approves them or something, because I think they work very closely with Toho and it's approved by Toho to the point that Bandai actually made figures of the Godzilla and Gigan Rex from the short. So they must have approval from Toho, or they must work directly with Toho. I don't really understand it. But anyway, they made this great short film. I think it was pretty cool. It very much, for me, felt kind of like a video game, actually. But it's Godzilla fighting these Gigans and this really super powerful Gigan. I won't say much else. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out right now. But I think it's pretty cool. It feels like a video game to me, and but I like it. I think it's cool. It reminds me kind of that Godzilla versus Gamera fan film we got as well, um, but a bit different. And I do like the character of Gigan Rex. I like this version of Gigan that's like super powerful, and is like a huge challenge for Godzilla to face. And I like this concept here that like the Gigans, that's plural, are like small and they attack him, so he can defeat them, but then this one is a bit tougher to fight. It's an interesting concept and twist on Gigan. Yeah, it's cool. And again, I'm not gonna say much else. You can go check it out now for yourself. But it just shows, it goes to show you that like I think Gigan would be fantastic in the MonsterVerse. He's such a great villain, and he's so menacing, and he can really pack a wallop. Like he can really beat up Godzilla a ton, and he's a really dangerous threat, I think, for Godzilla. On the level of Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah, I think Gigan is a dangerous threat that would be a really big challenge for Godzilla. And so that's why I'd love to see Gigan in the MonsterVerse. The other short film that came out was this really cool Godzilla versus Gigan suitmation short film, and I won't show you the short film, but you can. So the thing is, Toho had it up for like a day, and then they took it down. And I'm not gonna say don't go out and find it, but I am gonna, yeah, you probably can find it. It's not up on Toho's YouTube channel, but it's out there on YouTube, and I've seen it for myself. And if you happen to go, you might be able to find it. I'm not condoning, watching that if it's not authorized by Toho. I'm not condoning downloading it and uploading it if Toho doesn't let you do that. And if you do upload it and Toho takes down your video, don't say I didn't warn you. So, but I am just saying that some places do have it up, and I did watch it, and I think it's really cool. So it features the Gigan 1972 suit fighting against the Godzilla Final Wars suit. They did a similar production short film last year with Godzilla vs. Hedra, and so this one is supposed to be for, all of this is for the Gigan 50th anniversary, by the way. It's the 50th anniversary of the film Godzilla vs. Gigan. This is a super cool short. For those of you who grew up on the Millennium, the Heisei era of films, you're gonna love this. It's amazing. It all harkens back to that, and it's the same visual effects. Yes, it's a short film, so the production quality isn't super amazing, but there's also some things they can do now that they couldn't do back then because they have all this like computer After Effects, visual effects that they can do now, but super cool. Super cool. And so if you love that suitmation stuff, you gotta check this one out if you can find a version of it. Again, I'm not condoning ripping it from Toho and uploading it, but if you can find it online, and you watch, I would give it a watch. But that's all I can really say. But I'm not going to show it here because I don't want to get this live stream taken down. But it's really cool. and I'm hoping Toho continues to do their Suitmation stuff. They've actually already announced that next year is already the 50th anniversary uh, thing for Megalon and Jet Jaguar. So it may be that we get a short for Megalon and Jet Jaguar next year for next year's Godzilla Day. And then that would probably mean that Mechagodzilla would be in 2024. We might get Mechagodzilla 50th anniversary, which would be interesting. But also, it's kind of like he's already been in so many things. um, but anyway, I think next year we will see more stuff with Megalon and Jet Jaguar with suits, which is really cool. And I love the fact that Toho is still continuing to do stuff with suits. Again, for those of us who grew up on that stuff, it's like it's a huge part of this franchise. The Suitmation is like a big part of these films, and it's like something. This is like I guess maybe it's nostalgia for it, sure, and maybe today those effects don't look that great, but man, there's something like a classic about them. I love the Suitmation, and it's so cool to see it done in a modern way, um, and in some ways it's still done really really well. So anyway, I really like it. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic though. The other thing relating to Gigan, big day for Gigan, 50th anniversary. For those of you who are big SH Monster Arts fans, SH Monster Arts announced that they're going to do a Gigan 1972 figure. I think it looks pretty good from what I see here. I have my qualms with SH Monster Arts. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so great. But I'm not going to say much else besides the fact that it does look good. It does look like a good figure. Um, if you're a huge fan of this suit, you may want to get your hands on this because there's not much else on this suit really. There was a Revoltech figure of this suit a few years ago, but that figure came out a long time ago at this point. And the only other Gigan that SH Monster Arts did was the Final Wars one. So we don't really have many figures of this version of Gigan, um, in like in the sense of like a high quality figure. We have a lot of Bandai Movie Monster version, but SH Monster Arts, this would be the first time. So this might be one that if you're a big Gigan fan, and especially if you like this suit, you may want to get your hands on this figure. I'm not really sure what it's going to retail for, but probably I'd expect, normally what an SH Monster Arts figure is between the 80 up range in dollars, right? Hopefully not much more than that though. Especially for this figure, I don't expect it to be that expensive because it's not probably going to be that big. But maybe the detail with the fin and stuff like that, they're going to argue like, oh, maybe it's worth $90 or more. Um, that's up to you. It is a nice looking figure, I won't lie. I think SH Monster, from this one picture I can see, I think SH Monster Arts has done a really good job. I am curious to see what the posability is on the mouth. If the, what do you call them? The tusks, jaws things that on his mouth open, and what the posability is. So we'll probably get more photos of him in the future. But I think for Gigan fans, if you're a huge Gigan fan, this was like amazing for you. We got so much stuff for Gigan. It's pretty fantastic. And the other big news was, I already talked about this in my last stream, was the Gigabash Godzilla crossover. But we finally had our first teaser featuring Godzilla. And again, it's a teaser. It barely shows anything. This is really all it shows is what very much looks like the Heisei 90s Godzilla suit, with the dorsal fins lighting up. And that's going to be in this game. And then at the end, it says December 9th, 2022. Let's see if it loads. So, yeah, that's kind of what we get. That's really it. That's all we get out of this trailer. But hey, December, that next month, that's already quicker than we expected. I didn't expect it at least to be so quick. Some people, I'm not sure if they expected it sooner or not. Because we got the announcement, last month? So this is pretty quick for turnaround. I will say, like I mentioned in my last stream about this, we do know there's going to be more than just Godzilla. There will be other Toho characters, but they don't show up in this trailer. It's just Godzilla. But like I've said that before, there will be other Toho characters. From what I've heard, maybe we'll get more information. I don't know if it's going to be that they'll release Godzilla first and then slowly release the other Toho characters, or they're all going to come at once. But December 9th, at least Godzilla is coming. So if if you're a big fan of Gigabash, you must be pretty excited. Um, I don't know how much he's gonna cost. I didn't see that yet. So hopefully, like I said before, I hope he's not too expensive. Or if you can buy them, you buy the whole pack of Toho characters and not just Godzilla, or not just each one individually. So yeah, that's pretty cool though. December 9th, ladies and gentlemen, December 9th. That's pretty exciting. And the last one, last kind of news-ish, if you're really into that, I mean, I'd still consider news, is the new Shin Godzilla Cavity Colors crossover. Basically, Cavity Colors is like a clothing brand, like a horror movie clothing brand, as far as I know. I don't really shop at them that much, but they have made some cool merch before. I think this might be this shirt I have right now from Godzilla vs. Kong. I think might be by Cavity Colors. They make some cool shirts. And so they're doing like a Shin Godzilla themed brand of shirts. I think they look pretty nice. And I actually kind of like the long sleeve shirts. I'm a big fan of long sleeve shirts, to be honest. I have too many shirts. They've got some cool hoodies, some good shirts. This is also a nice shirt. So they've got some pretty cool merch coming out. I like, this kind of clothing. I like this design. But if you don't care, I understand. But for me, this is cool. I do kind of like this clothing. And I'm just happy that we're getting more like crossovers with different brands for clothing, because back in the day, it used to be you just got like a random generic shirt with like a Godzilla movie poster on it, and that was it. And you had to get it at G-Fest or some random place online. When Godzilla 2014 came out, there was more stuff, but it was just for that film. And slowly but surely, we've been getting more and more merch. I really think with Godzilla versus Kong, I want to say, maybe King of the Monsters, there was more. I didn't pay attention as much, but I feel like with Godzilla versus Kong is really when we started to get a lot of clothing merch, a lot of crossovers. I think Mondo as well does clothing, but yeah, I think this Cavity Colors Shin Godzilla crossover is really cool. So I wanted to mention that. There's some other stuff that came out on Godzilla Day, but these were the things that I personally found the most interesting. Yeah, but obviously the biggest news was the new Godzilla film coming out in 2023, which is huge. I mean, so I guess that's kind of like where at this point I just kind of ramble incoherently. And here you kind of see I have some random pictures in the background, but we have Godzilla the Ride. And I just want to say that the design for, and here we have the Always Sunset Godzilla, which again, by the same director, all of this stuff, Godzilla the Ride. Here we have Godzilla versus Gigan Rex. So I think this is a really, really cool image. But I like the design of the Godzilla from Godzilla the Ride. And if they do something similar, I would be more than happy to see that. I think just the way I've seen what Toho's been doing lately, I think it's going to be something like that. It's going to be very Heisei inspired, legendary inspired, but classic. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be like Shin Godzilla in that the Godzilla will be too different. Shin Godzilla was made by the guy who did like Neon Genesis Evangelion. He's kind of like out there with his ideas. I think this film will be more, shall we say, I don't want to say conservative is the best word, but like, I think they'll take Godzilla with a more classic approach in terms of design and abilities. I think you'll just feel like a very classic Toho Godzilla without any weird abilities or transformation or anything. Yeah, I think because it doesn't feel like it's going to be a sequel to Shin Godzilla. It's a different director, different story. If it's set in a period piece, it's a different kind of movie, I think. We'll see what happens. We'll get more information as the film comes closer, But just knowing Toho and the kind of movies and the kind of what they've been doing with Godzilla lately, I don't foresee this being Shin Godzilla 2 or being like Shin Godzilla. I think this Godzilla will be much more classic, very like Godzilla the Ride, um, or Always Sunset. It'll be more of a classic Godzilla, probably done in CGI, um, with normal Godzilla powers. Will there be other kaiju? We'll see. I mean, Shin Godzilla was, I guess, different in that it didn't, right? It was a solo Godzilla film. But maybe this one might have more than one kaiju. I kind of, if they're doing something a bit more classic, I feel like they probably would include other kaiju in this. If you look at Shin Ultraman, for example, even he fights other kaiju in that one. That's kind of, Ultraman has to fight other kaiju. But I don't, if Shin Godzilla, Shin Godzilla had like him transforming into different forms, right? So you could kind of say those were the different kaiju in the film. This version will probably not do that. Then I probably would assume there will be other kaiju in the film, is my guess. And especially if like Godzilla the Ride has him fighting, for example, King Ghidorah, then there's probably a good chance that there will be other kaiju in it. So we will have to see as we get closer to the film. I think that the other thing, though, could be that if it is like what I'm guessing, it might be a remake of Godzilla 1954. That's just my guess at this point. Then Godzilla might just be the only kaiju because that was a solo film. So then maybe it might make sense that it's only Godzilla and it follows the same story. Godzilla appears. Maybe even it's a direct remake, like Godzilla appears, attacks Japan. They have to create the oxygen destroyer to stop him, and they kill him. I don't know if it's going to be like that, or maybe it's a different story. Godzilla appears and attacks Japan, and they have to find a way to stop him, or another kaiju appears and Godzilla stops that kaiju, or something like that. We'll have to see. There's so many guesses at this point. I don't know as well if this is supposed to be starting some kind of like Toho Kaiju cinematic universe, because it was known that Toho said some years ago that they weren't going to do a sequel to Shin Godzilla. They were more interested in doing like a cinematic universe of Godzilla, with of a cinematic Toho Godzilla universe thing. And I'm not sure that this is supposed to like kickstart that or something like that. I don't know. I feel like the thing is the MonsterVerse is still very much ongoing, and then there's gonna be a show and an anime and the movies. I just don't know that Toho wants to compete so much with the MonsterVerse. I think this might be. Is this gonna be another one-off thing, and then we have to wait a few years? I don't know. Maybe this is just like a remake of the original, or maybe this is meant to set up a franchise. I mean, also it depends on how well the movie actually does, and if they want to consider, making this into a franchise. I guess they have to negotiate with Legendary to see if they can make more movies afterwards. And do we want to see more Toho Godzilla films in the future? I think that, especially since it's like obviously a Toho Japanese production, it's going to be stylistically very different, probably set in a different time period. I don't think it really conflicts with the MonsterVerse very much. So I don't mind a Toho film production of Godzilla every few years, while we kind of like cycle on and off with Legendary. I mean, look at Marvel. Marvel makes like and even DC at this point makes like 2 or 3 films a year. So maybe we could get to a point where we have like a MonsterVerse film and then a Toho Godzilla film each year, which I would be fine with because they're so different. They're not really going to conflict with each other, but we'll just have to see. But or every other year, right? I, as a G fan, can't complain. And as long as they're different, and I think they would be, I wouldn't mind it. And I think that Toho, for me, like Shin Godzilla really impressed me. um, and since then I've kind of gained a lot of respect for Toho. This is not the Toho from the early 2000s. This is very different. Obviously, that was like 20 plus years ago at this point, but the Toho from the 2000s, I think many of us felt like they were just spitting out Godzilla movies, and then they just kind of ended that because no one was really going to see them. And so I think we were a bit more skeptical of how Toho could pull off making Godzilla movies again. But Shin Godzilla, to me, was very impressive and felt very modern, and it felt like Toho was trying new things, which I really appreciated. So I've come to really respect Toho now, and all their stuff they're doing with Godzilla Day and everything. I feel like Toho is taking Godzilla very seriously and wants to see Godzilla succeed, both in the MonsterVerse and with their own productions. So I trust Toho a lot more now than I did in the 2000s, and I think they could do a pretty good job with this film, and if it's good and they make sequels, that'd be great. What can I complain if, like I said, every year we get either a Toho film or a MonsterVerse film, especially if like after this MonsterVerse movie, maybe the next film is Son of Kong and it's a Kong only movie. We have to wait until Godzilla gets his own movie. In the meantime, we could get another Toho Godzilla film. Um, Honestly, we win, right? At the end of the day, us G fans are going to win because we're getting so much content. It's crazy to think about. And it's also great because, it's been a bit, I'd say almost a bit of not a drought, because it's not been that long, but it's been a bit more quiet, right, on news. The last real big news we got in terms of the movies or anything was back like at the end of July and August about like the filming of the next MonsterVerse film, and then like the official synopsis coming out that's like Godzilla and Kong teaming up together. That was back in like July and August. We haven't heard anything except for the Gigabash stuff. Maybe there was some news about someone who joined like the MonsterVerse show as well, but like nothing major. It's been pretty quiet since then, but this was pretty nice to get this news, and it's a bit surprising. But like I said, we knew about this project actually back in February. What we didn't know it was officially a Godzilla film. And I think a lot of people forgot about it because there was nothing else reported on it. And because, I think especially because it was like, it came out of Japan. And I think the thing is like with that, you have to be kind of skeptical because you're trusting someone who translated it from a website, and you don't even know with a website, you can't really trust it. So I think we were kind of skeptical because the thing is a lot of stuff that comes out of Japan gets translated, and maybe there's a lot of mistranslation, and so people may have thought, okay, well maybe it was just mistranslated, right? And that's why people kind of forgot about it. That's my theory, at least. I think people kind of forgot about it. I forgot about it, to be fair. I think I was just so focused on the MonsterVerse. I had a feeling Toho might do more Godzilla films, to be fair. I thought it's possible. But I didn't think that we would get the news today, or well, the past few days. So I think it's really cool that we got this news. I'm pretty excited. Moon Myers, do you think this will be the start of Toho's World of Godzilla universe? I was actually just saying that I don't know, because the thing is, do they want to compete with the MonsterVerse? On the one side, I don't know if they should be trying to like put out too many films, but on the same side, it would be cool, like I said, to get like Toho films and Legendary films at the same time. I mean, Marvel does like 2 or 3 movies a year, and I mean, okay, a lot of people are actually starting to complain a lot about Marvel, but back before, not now, but a few years ago, Marvel could put out 3 movies a year and everybody loved them, right? I think that Legendary and Toho could probably, if they're doing 1 or 2 movies a year, I think it could be fine. But again, the other problem is that, like, let's imagine the MonsterVerse keeps going and Legendary would want to do more, like, you know, specific movies, like probably more Kong movies, maybe a Mothra or a Rodan movie. Is Toho gonna do the same thing? The problem is you run into this issue of like, how are Toho movies gonna be different than Legendaries? Because otherwise, it's just the same thing, just in Japanese. Um, I've always wanted Ghidorah solo movies, or I've always thought a Ghidorah movie could be really cool, and I have my own thoughts on how to tell that kind of a story, where Ghidorah came from, where Gigan came from. Um, I'd love to see something like, I think there are certain things that Toho could do that Legendary wouldn't really do or wouldn't be interested in, like things like Atragon, or yeah, Atragon. I think Atragon would be a really cool thing that Toho could do a remake of. War of the Gargantuas, stuff like that. I think the MonsterVerse, I mean, there's a lot of monsters though that Kong and Godzilla have all together. So there's a lot of villains. There's Mothra, there's Rodan. There's still a whole bunch of Godzilla villains. And if they bring in Gamera, the thing is though, the other thing is that the MonsterVerse is really slow. Like the MonsterVerse started in 2014. It's like 2022 and we've had four movies. So even if the MonsterVerse has 5 movies, like it will take another 10 years just to get all those movies. Plus they have the shows. I'd love for them maybe to bring in Zilla. So I think that, you know, if they bring in Gamera, that'd be amazing. But I would like Toho to focus on more niche things that Legendary probably, like I think Legendary could probably get around to Rodan, to Mothra, probably more Kong movies. Maybe they bring in Gamera. I'd like Toho to focus on niche stuff that Legendary probably wouldn't care for, like Atragon, War of the Gargantuas, maybe like Dogora, maybe Gabara, you know, characters like that. The other thing is the MonsterVerse can come up with new monsters and villains. They do that all the time. They have like new titans and stuff they can do. So they're always going to have that material to draw on. The kaiju video game market has been droughted recently. Oh, well, yeah, I was also talking about Gigabash and the fact that they're bringing in Godzilla, and Godzilla video games is just like, that's a whole nother travesty right there. That we've been waiting on a good Godzilla game, an actual console Godzilla game. The last one came out in what, 2015, and it was a PlayStation exclusive, by the way. So, which is really funny because like the original Atari, no, what were they Atari, whatever they were, the Pipeworks Godzilla games were all like Nintendo. Actually, they came out Nintendo and Xbox and PlayStation, and then Godzilla Unleashed came out only on the Wii, and then the new one from 2015 only came out on PlayStation. I think that's really silly because you're losing a lot of fans. Like, at least put it out on PC. Gigabash is out on PC. So I'm hoping if they make a new Godzilla game, it'll be console or PS5, PS4, and PC. Hopefully Xbox, hopefully, that'd be great. But yeah, it's just, we need more Godzilla games. I think Godzilla, Bride of Godzilla, Ghost Godzilla. Dude, Toho could do those things. Toho could do a Space Godzilla, right? Not the Space Godzilla the villain, but a Space Godzilla, like that weird story of Roseanne going to space and fighting those aliens or her husbands. Maybe done much more seriously, but an open world Godzilla game would be fire. I mean, I think that's what all fans are dreaming of. You know, I say, like, when I do my Kaiju, what the hell is it called? Kaiju Unleashed on Roblox, when I play that game, and I get to, like, swim around and go from island to island, I'm like, I want this to be a full game. Like, it's obviously a Roblox game, so it's quite limited. But the concept is amazing. Like, I can start on one island, go swim to Tokyo, fight monsters there. I want the same idea, but on a huge world map. Great graphics, and I'm just Godzilla or a kaiju swimming from place to place, flying, whatever, fighting monsters, breaking, destroying stuff, but as a full game. That'd be amazing. So, the Godzilla vs. Kong VR game, I don't know much about that. All I know is that Legendary is doing a 2.5D, 2.5, not 3D, but 2.5D Godzilla, 2.5D game for the MonsterVerse. And I don't know if Godzilla and Kong are in it, but it's for the MonsterVerse. Um, so we'll have to see what that means. We haven't heard much about that, except that was a few months ago. Um, that's the only other game thing that I know of at this point. I know Godzilla Battle Line is still popular, though. That's still going on. Obviously, we have the Gigabash crossover. So I'm very excited for Universe Godzilla. Yeah, sure. More Toho stuff. The Thanos of a Toho Godzilla to be. I think for me, like again, I want it to be different than legendaries, so I feel like Destroyer and Space Godzilla will probably would be legendary, would take those, but maybe Monster X, Bagan. I think Bagan, because I don't know if legendary would ever use Bagan, but Toho has Bagan, however you say it. That would be amazing, because Bagan has never been actually done in a film before. He's like the most famous unused character. He was only in a video game. So I think that would be cool. Bagan is the main bad guy of the Toho Godzilla films. That could be really cool. And it would be different too. The other thing is I don't want these Toho Godzilla films to just use the same villains we always got. Like if you use King Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla, like I'm gonna be like, oh my goodness. Which Godzilla the Ride has King Ghidorah in it, I get it. But I'm like, please, like it's like Batman and the Joker. It's like, I love King Ghidorah, I love Mechagodzilla, but we need to use Gigan, you know? Though I would also like to see Gigan in the MonsterVerse. So, um, yeah. So I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, what do we want in Legendaries? What do we want in the MonsterVerse? I mean, in the Toho, whatever we call this, right? The Toho verse versus the MonsterVerse. Some things work better than others. I think Gigan could be cool. Gigan could probably work in either one. Space Godzilla Destroyer, I think I'd like to see them more in the MonsterVerse. Biolante, maybe that could work in either one as well. But I think Bagan could be cooler in the Toho universe. Monster X, I think, would be cool to see. But would Monster X transform into Kaiser Ghidorah? That would just be kind of like King Ghidorah. Stuff like Megaguirus, Orga, you know, those are characters that I highly doubt are ever going to show up in a MonsterVerse movie. Maybe Batra, who else? Baragon, not as villains, but just showing up. Like I said, more niche characters that have like only appeared maybe once or twice in a Toho film. Those would be really cool to see in a new universe of Toho movies. Maybe Zilla. Zilla would be great to see more in the MonsterVerse, but it would be cool to see. I'd love for Zilla to come back somewhere, either in the MonsterVerse or in a new Toho film. Megalon, I think maybe Megalon could work either way in the MonsterVerse or not, but it would be cool to see Megalon come back. Maybe Megalon in a Toho film would be cool. Maybe Jet Jaguar would show up. You could have Gabara from Godzilla's Revenge, maybe. Yeah, Anguirus. I would love to see Anguirus in the MonsterVerse, but if Toho wants to bring him back too, yeah, that would be cool. So, Ibra would be cool to see in Skull Island. I think that would have been great. But I think that Skull Island doesn't really exist unless he's in the anime. The Skull Island anime, which we have no idea when that's coming out, but Ibra could be a good one. I don't know if the Skull Island anime will feature, I think it's just going to be New Titans. I don't think it'll be anything from Toho, but that would be cool to see Ibra in the Skull Island anime. Yeah, I think there just is a lot, you know, that we want to see. And I think with the MonsterVerse, you know, we don't really know what's coming after this movie or the show or the anime, but neither does, I mean, Legendary has plans. I think Toho has plans, so you think Toho should reintroduce the idea of aliens? I've been wanting to see aliens in these movies for quite some time. Like, I'm not sure if the MonsterVerse should do it or Toho, but maybe Toho could do it. More like invasion type deal, like a remake of Final Wars maybe, or lead up to. Like, I wouldn't want the first movie to just be aliens show up, but I would, especially if it's more like a period piece set in the 1940s, but maybe it could build up to that. Like the first, maybe over time, if Toho does a lot of these movies, they build up to an alien invasion. Maybe these movies are like, I would think would be cool if these movies were all period pieces. So like the first one is set in the 1940s, the next one in the 1950s and 1960s, and they're like remakes of the Showa movies. So like it's a remake of Godzilla vs. Monster Zero or Destroy All Monsters, it's still, well, okay, I know Destroy All Monsters is set in 1999, but like it came out in 1968. So it's like a remake of that set in the 60s. I think that would be super cool, but it's like an alien invasion by the Exilians. Would I prefer Godzilla to start as a destroyer and then slowly begin to trust humanity, or have him protect humanity at the start until they try to kill him with a nuke? I'm more of a fan of I think the first one. I think it's the classic Godzilla's a threat and the humans want to kill him until they realize they need him. But I'm always a fan of Godzilla as an anti-hero. That's kind of my favorite versions of Godzilla, like the Heisei version in terms of his portrayal, or like Godzilla versus Megaguirus, Godzilla Final Wars, King Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, where Godzilla's like an anti-hero, but the humans need him to save their planet. So you said you want them to be period pieces like Godzilla Half-Century War is probably one of the better comics that IDW put out. I think Half-Century War is great, and I would love to see something like that. Yeah, Half-Century War, exactly. Like, that would be cool. As a movie, well, maybe as several movies, that exactly, like, to see Godzilla over time. I don't know if this is the best example, but, like, for example, for what they did with, like, X-Men, like, First Class and Days of Future Past, and what was the third one? Like, the X-Men prequels. Not all of them were great, but the concept was cool. Like the X-Men in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. That would be cool. Done well, not done like those movies. So like imagine a Godzilla movie, but in the 50s and one in the 60s. Like, I don't know. And period pieces are cool, but with like, modern visual effects. So your idea of a Anguirus in the Western times, a cowboy riding him into battle, and to have kaiju duels shot. That's cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. That could also be cool too. Like, instead of the 20th century, have even earlier movies, like movies set even further in the past. Like, well, obviously, my Gamera fan trailer had like Gamera back in like the Atlantis, ancient times. But maybe even something like in medieval Japan during the samurai, or somewhere in that time period, or something in Asia, or even the Middle East, or somewhere in like ancient times or medieval times, but with Godzilla, another kaiju. That might be more for the MonsterVerse, because the MonsterVerse clearly has like a lore of these creatures being around a long time. I don't know if Toho would do the same, but that would be cool. How do you propose Legendary fix their boring humans? I mean, that is not an easy... I didn't actually mind Millie Bobby Brown's character in Godzilla vs. Kong. I actually liked her character a lot. I liked her character more in Godzilla vs. Kong than I did in King of the Monsters. I liked her group, the Godzilla team, her friend, and the conspiracy theorists. I thought they were pretty funny. I also really liked the Kong team, which was like the little girl and then the doctor lady, the scientist lady. I didn't much care for Skarsgård's character, the guy who like lost his brother in the Hollow Earth. I didn't find him that interesting. The rest of the humans were, pretty flat. How do you propose? I mean, I think they need to build better connections between the humans and the monsters. I always look to like the Gamera trilogy from the 90s that I felt like did a really good job of like connecting humans to the monsters. Like there's characters in those movies that have a connection to Gamera, for example. I don't know, you can't do that here, but something like that. Like they just need to build better connections between the humans and the monsters. Um, Instead of them just being there like, oh my, watching these monsters fight, they need to have better connections to them. So, do you think an origin movie for a kaiju? Oh, yeah. So, but I mean, it's not easy. Um, but I personally like don't dislike the human characters. I mean, for example, Kong Skull Island has great characters. John C. Riley's character is great in that film. Why? Because he has like such a good connection with Kong. Um, do you think some of the movies should be animated? That really depends. I think some things would be cool to see animated, like a Rodan movie, maybe a Mothra movie, but like the main movies should be live action, in my opinion, right? That's just me. Because, for example, that's why we have animated series. Like we have Godzilla Singular Point, we have Kong Skull Island. Like some things are cool, but like the big epic moments, I want to see live action. You know, I want to see them on the big screen. I'd rather see those, yeah. But like you could do, you know, prequel stuff. Maybe Godzilla in the ancient times. Maybe a Rodan movie. Maybe Mothra. You could do those animated. Monsterverse or whatever. Rodan movie, Top Gun, Maverick stuff. Exactly. That could be live action. That could be animated. So there's a lot of things that they can do. Toho or Legendary, really. Yeah, I think that we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the MonsterVerse is like going through a new phase right now. Like we don't know how the show is gonna be. We don't know what the next movie is really gonna be about. We don't know what the Skull Island anime. Like everything is still very tightly controlled. And now we have this new Toho film. We don't know what that's gonna be about. So we just have to kind of guess at this point and hope that it's all good and original. Um, People in suits, fully CGI, or mix of both. My personal preference, I don't have a huge personal preference either or. I'm not one camp or the other. I'm not anti CGI. I'm not pro suits. Like, I don't, for me, it's all about what looks the best and what works the best. Because CGI is not always perfect. But the guys in suits, like there are some limits to it. No matter how good today's visual effects can be, like guys in suits always has a certain limit to it. And I personally am not against either or, but I think realistically, I don't think Toho will do. To be fair, I think Toho is going to make it CGI because that's what they've been doing with all their shorts, their ride. Shin Godzilla was all CGI, and that came out like 6 years ago. I highly doubt they're gonna do a guy in a suit. It might be, though, maybe some shots. They might, like Shin Godzilla had like a suit animatronic thing they built. They never actually used it in the end, but they did build it. They did try and film stuff with it, and apparently it didn't look very good. But they may try and do that here. Is they make a suit or an animatronic they use for some shots, but not for everything. So the new film will be about Godzilla's first attack on humanity in Japan, or a flashback. That's my theory is either that it's a remake of the original film, like a complete remake or reboot of it, or that's a flashback sequence. Again, we don't really know. I would love to see that though. I think that would be pretty cool to get a remake of Godzilla 1954. I mean, I don't know if I want just like a complete remake of the story. You know, Godzilla shows up and then like they kill him with the oxygen destroyer. Like, I'd like something more original and creative. But it would be cool to get a film set in the 1940s and 50s of Godzilla's first attack on Japan, but with modern visual effects. And the guy in a suit as lighting, and yeah, like they'll do motion capture. They did that on Shin Godzilla. They did that on King of the Monsters. That they did a guy for motion capture. But yeah, the only, like I said, maybe they might do some shots with an animatronic. or a suit type thing, some shots, but I have a feeling a lot of it will be CGI. Because that is just the direction that Toho has kind of gone. So yeah, well, we have to see. So we have to see. Um, maybe we'll get Gigan, in the MonsterVerse or in the new Toho verse. But aliens would be cool. Yeah, I'd love to see Mothra more. Maybe we'll get more Mothra, Batra, Megaguirus, Orga, Titanosaurus, Baron, King Caesar, characters that I don't know Legendary will ever do. So those characters would be cool to see. I have a feeling Orga will never be on the picture. Oh man, don't say that. Orga's like my childhood. I'd love to see Orga come back. And then hopefully, the real big thing that we were talking about earlier is that hopefully all of this will inspire a new console game, or somebody will pick up the license to do a new console video game. So, unless he's with Bylante as a movie on biological weapon kaijus. Yeah, or maybe part of an alien invasion, right? That they kind of launch him as part of an alien invasion. We'll have to see. I'd love to see Orga, though. I think he's a very underrated villain. Maybe it's my nostalgia, maybe my childhood, but his fight with Godzilla is really good. I think it's still it's probably the best parts of that movie, actually. I'm not the biggest fan of Godzilla 2000, but that fight sequence at the end is great. So, I'd love to see Orga come back, but maybe that's just my childhood nostalgia coming in. So, but yeah, big news, huge news, right? Well, maybe not the biggest news ever, but do you think the new movie will have a focus on something like global warming? If it's a period piece, probably not. If it's in the modern day, probably. Maybe, because it wasn't as big a thing back in the 1940s. If it's modern day, then for sure. They could easily make a plot where, like, maybe they buried Godzilla in the ice in the 1940s. Like Final Wars? They stopped him. But then, thanks to global warming, climate change, he breaks out and he attacks Japan in the modern day, or the world, right? That could be something really cool. Maybe thanks to climate change, global warming, other kaiju are waking up and Godzilla fights them as well. And he's kind of like bringing balance to nature. That's a bit like the MonsterVerse, though, so they have to find a way to make it kind of different. Shin Godzilla had a pretty good message that felt like the original kind of anti-nuclear message of the original films, but without being about nuclear testing. It was about like nuclear waste, and that's what created Shin Godzilla. They did a pretty good job of that. I feel like the message here, it depends on what this is. If it's a 40s period piece or if it's in modern day. That's kind of different. Imagine a colony of space Godzilla's Gigan invading different planets and different galaxies. And I'd love to see something, and I don't know if this would ever work in a movie, but like I read some great fan fiction that was this idea that like all the different alien races are working together. Like the black hole aliens, or no, not the black hole, but the aliens from the 9th planet from the black hole, the cockroach ones, the Exilians. There's the other races as well. The Vortak or whatever, the race from Destroy All Monsters. They're all working together, and they attack Earth and the monsters. That would be cool to see, like the different. Or what I'd love, I had this other idea maybe, or like a prequel set like thousands of years before, and it shows like the cosmos, the little people that worship Mothra. I think they call it the cosmos, and that they actually come from a different planet. They don't come from Earth, and basically their civilization gets invaded by the other alien races, and it shows us like the origins of King Ghidorah, Gigan, the Exilians, the aliens from the 9th planet from the black hole, like what happened to their planet. It shows us all these alien races and what happened to them. Maybe a big war went out. and it kind of builds up to the cosmos coming to Earth. Maybe they find some butterflies and mutate them into Mothras, or maybe they find Mothras, because we never get explained like where Mothra comes from. If they created Mothra, or Mothra was like it's just a creature that exists on Earth that has some kind of bond with these beings. So yeah, um, that's an idea. That would be cool though. I'd love to see something more focusing on the space side of the Godzilla lore and like the cosmos and their origins, because I think they're really interesting. The Mothra trilogy kind of tried to do something like that, but it was for kids, so it was really cheesy. But like if you did it right and more seriously, without being too serious, I think it could be really cool. Plus, you know, you can put in King Ghidorah's origin, Gigan's origin, where these all these alien races came from. Um, Worst thing they can do is follow the DCEU. The DCEU is a mess. They have their own Kevin Feige. I don't even know if the MonsterVerse has that, right? I think at this point we don't know who Toho has to lead these projects. I think they have some producer. And they have this director. Uh, the MonsterVerse I don't even think has someone like a Kevin Feige, because the Thomas Toll, who was like the CEO of Legendary, like left. He was the one who orchestrated like the MonsterVerse. Um, so we'll see what happens. Start the universe focusing on the Earth. Like I said, I don't know what Toho will do, um, but I think what could set them apart, a big part of it, is if this is a period piece and it uses different kaiju than the MonsterVerse. That already makes it very different than the MonsterVerse. Maybe even one day, you know, if Toho's films do well enough and the MonsterVerse continues, we'll get a, God, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, like a Spider-Man No Way Home, where we get like, or like a Multiverse of Madness movie where we just get Godzillas from different universes coming together. I don't know if that's too silly. Probably at this point it's too much, but it would be cool to see something like that where we get somehow Godzillas from different universes meet. Godzilla, Legendary Godzilla, Toho Godzilla, Shin Godzilla, um, maybe Earth Godzilla, something like that. There's a great fan trailer actually called like Across the Multiverse. Really good fan trailer. I forget exactly what it's called, um, but it's super cool. I really like it. I think it's called Across the Multiverse. You can look it up, but um, maybe I can find it. But it's a cool fan trailer, and it kind of is like that idea of like just different Godzillas fighting. Maybe that would be too stupid. It's called Godzilla Across the Multiverse official trailer concept by SMF Lizard. So, yeah, like I go back. It's this one. Godzilla Across the Multiverse. Really good trailer, really cool fan trailer. So check it out if you haven't seen it. But I think as stupid as this idea might be very stupid, but I think it could be cool to see. Well, the trailer itself is not stupid. I'm not saying that. It's a great trailer, and shout out to the creator. But maybe the concept itself is too silly for a movie, but I think I'd still love to see it. So, hey, maybe even put Godzilla in the Marvel Universe. Look, Godzilla was in the Marvel comics. He fought the Fantastic Four. I think he fought Spider-Man. So, could be cool. Could be really cool. Oh, I forgot to mention, AO asked, is the design out yet? The design is not out yet for the new Godzilla. So, I want a kaiju with ability of super speed. I think Rodan is probably closest to that. So, I want to say, I think Rodan is the fastest kaiju that we know of. No, there is a version of Mothra that did go like light speed or something like that in the Mothra trilogy. I have to watch those movies again. It's been a long time. And have Space Godzilla crystallized weapons out of thin air like Green Lantern. I think there's so much you can do with Space Godzilla. He's actually super powerful. And I'd like to see him be kind of the main. If I had to say like who should be the Thanos of the MonsterVerse, I think it should be Space Godzilla. Um, my opinion. I think that Space Godzilla, has is such a in Godzilla Unleashed. I think he was like the main villain, and I like the way they did that. He was kind of the main threat to the world. Um, I think Space Godzilla, it's like kind of the best way to do it because he's like the evil space version of Godzilla. It's kind of like the main part of the franchise. So, what better way to do it than to have Godzilla face off against Space Godzilla at the end? Other people say that like the big bad of the MonsterVerse should be Destroyer. Um, so it's either between those two. So Methalo Kaiju to direct the fights. Oh yeah, Methalo Kaiju put out a trailer for his own Godzilla versus Gigan thing, so that's pretty cool as well. I just watched that trailer not too long ago. So I think, yeah, it's this one, Shin Godzilla Reign Part 2. So Methalo Kaiju does some pretty cool content. I quite like their stuff. They did as well Mechagodzilla Transforms 3D. This was back before we even had a very good look at Mechagodzilla, and that they had this version of Mechagodzilla that would transform. But yeah, they make some good content. So very talented. Go subscribe to them if you haven't. So I wouldn't mind if all the movie videos except maybe look better because, well, look, Methalo Kaiju, like all these creators. The other one that's really good is Slick Animation, who also put out like another Godzilla thing. I mean, all of these creators like are doing this by themselves, alone. Yeah, so there's Slick. Okay, this is turning into like top animations on YouTube, but I don't mind. As we finish up here, going through some of the better animations that there's a lot of talented Godzilla Kaiju content creators out there, but Slick is really making great content. They put out this Mechagodzilla versus Gigan thing, which was pretty good. I think they put out something else actually, or did I swear, but they make great stuff. So I don't know if this was meant to be because of Gigan, but yeah, they put this out, and this is really good if you haven't seen it yet. They also have this great animation of Godzilla versus Destroyer, which is like it's like a movie. It's like it's like a short movie. It's like 40 minutes long, but really good animation. And then the last one was Godzilla 98 animated series. This is also really good. I just saw this the other day. If I can find it. That someone made a oh, now I can't find it anymore. Let's see, 3D. And some people do the live action version. There is one that's like 3D, unless they took it down. Oh, here it is. Godzilla the Series 3D Animatic. This is really cool. I won't show it here. You could go check it out for yourself, but this is super cool. This just came out yesterday, and it's basically, it's like the Godzilla anime series intro, but done in 3D animation and with different kaiju as well. It's super cool. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I just randomly saw it yesterday. I think it's so cool. So, Slick Animations always have the best. I like Slick Animations. I like their work. There's just so many. Like, this is why I always feel bad when I make my content, because I'm like, I feel like it's nothing compared to what these people do. Because my fan trailers have some animation in them, but these people do complete animation from start to finish. So they're doing amazing work. This is still super cool. I'd love to see Zilla maybe show up. I don't know if he'd show up in a Toho film, but maybe in the MonsterVerse. I'd love to see Zilla come back. I think that would be super cool. I know that Zilla, there's some haters out there, but I feel like at this point, as a fandom, we've come to accept Zilla, right? It doesn't feel like, there's really that much hate. That movie isn't that bad. Look, it's a cheesy 90s action movie, very typical of the time period, like Independence Day. And it's what it is. It's not a great Godzilla movie, but as like an action sci-fi movie, yeah, it's fun, it's entertaining. And I think Zilla's design is not bad either. And the animated series, it's very cheesy as well, but it's fun. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon, right? So, yeah, I'd love to see Zilla come back, maybe one day. So, Toho might just kill him within a minute of him being introduced again. Yeah, that's why I don't know if Toho would bring in Zilla, because they might just kill him. Which is why I feel like the MonsterVerse might try and do more with him, or maybe like have multiple Zillas, like as a species of creatures, because there's like maybe a pack of them, or maybe there's a mother who lays eggs and then she dies, but her children, her offspring, are born and they grow up. So yeah, we could see a whole bunch of them. So, but yeah, I think that's that's um, that's really mainly it from me, folks. Yeah, just we really got rambling there, but I do appreciate everyone in the chat and the wonderful discussion. But I'm just guessing. I feel like Zilla and Anguirus would get on better than normal Godzilla, probably. I feel like the Zillas would be kind of territorial, and Godzilla wouldn't like them very much and try and kick them, or the opposite, right? They would try and get in on Godzilla's territory, and Godzilla would try and kick them out. So, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I like I said, in terms of news, I think for this new Toho film, I feel like we'll probably start to get things definitely early next year. Maybe, big maybe, we'll get something before the end of the year, but I'm a bit skeptical. I think we'll start to get things more next year, definitely like 6 months before the movie comes out. So probably like April, May, we're going to start to get way more stuff. We might start to get a poster and everything, figures, all that stuff. That's crazy. We're gonna get all these things. Wow, that's crazy to think about. More figures. I already have. I feel like I already have too many, but that's fine. Another SH Monster Arts, of course. More Bandai Movie Monsters, more X Plus, like you know it. Bandai is just loving this stuff. Bandai will make anything now. Bandai will make a movie monster figure for anything. So. Imagine Kong is twice the size of Godzilla, and Godzilla has to desperately shoot him back with atomic breath. That would be pretty funny. It depends on, some versions of Godzilla are much smaller than the new Kong. Like the new Kong is huge. Like he's the biggest Kong ever. Like there's versions of Godzilla that are much smaller than Kong now. So, or if Kong is fully grown and he meets like a young Godzilla, he would be a lot bigger. So. But yeah, thank you to everyone who came to the stream. Thank you, Moon Myers. Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, everybody. Thanos, Godzilla. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Almost lost Gigan there. Jeez. And big shout out to everybody who's watching this on YouTube. I usually will leave this up on my channel, so this ain't going anywhere. So if you're watching this on YouTube after, give it a like. If you like this kind of content, subscribe. So you can find more live streams and VODs like this. And and for the rest of you, I'll see you all in the next live stream or the next video and everything. And again, thank you to everybody who came and supported. Always lovely to speak with everyone in the chat and everything. So have a good rest of your Saturday and weekend to all of you out there around the world. I'll see you all in the next